Hello, and welcome to the latest edition of City Management Report. I'm Community Relations Director Bridget Doyle. Today we'll be discussing Proposal 1, a ballot measure facing Michigan voters in a special election on May 5th. We have a great panel here today to discuss how Proposal 1 would affect Sterling Heights and Macomb County. We have City Manager Mark Vanderpool, Director of Public Works Sal Conigliaro, and Director of Macomb County Department of Roads Bob Hoepfner. Thank you all for being here. To start, Mark, could you please define Proposal 1 for us?
Thank you, Bridget. I'd be happy to. First, as a prelude, everyone knows that the road conditions in the state of Michigan are horrible, to say the least. We all experience this every day, driving our vehicles, ourselves and our kids and family members and those that we know. So many have encountered potholes and auto repairs and so on. Just by way of fact, the state of Michigan spends the least per capita on roads of any state in the country. So it's no surprise that we have the worst roads in the country. And the state legislature has been debating for years ways to solve that problem, to get increased funding into roads. And they have not been able to come up with a viable plan the last few years until recently. Just this past year, they adopted a proposal that causes a May 5th election. And should this ballot proposal pass, in its simplest form, it will result in $1.2 billion more for road improvements across the state. Now, there are some other components to the plan, and I'll just summarize them briefly. As many of you have heard the governor argue that the proposal that's before the voters, while some would argue it's very confusing, the governor has said it actually simplifies the way we fund roads compared to the way we currently do it. So the proposal on May 5th actually includes 100% funding at the gas pump for roads and removes the state sales tax from the road funding. Now, when you remove the state sales tax from the gas tax or road funding, it creates a major hole for schools and cities. And thus, that is why the legislation includes an increase in the sales tax from 6% to 7% to fund that hole, if you will, for cities and schools. But again, in its simplest form, it will result in $1.2 billion more in net new revenue for road improvements across the state. Now, there's also $100 million that would go toward public transportation throughout the state, a good portion of it in southeastern Michigan. And as we know, in southeastern Michigan, we're woefully inadequate in terms of public transportation, so additional funding is needed there as well. When you increase the state sales tax from 6 to 7%, it not only funds the portion that cities and schools would lose, removing it from the state gas tax, it would also generate additional revenue for schools and cities. In the case of cities, we would receive another $94 million across the state in additional revenue. For the city of Sterling Heights, that would be about just under $1 million more in operational revenue that would go toward public safety and other high priority needs. But it's important I point out there that cities have lost approximately $6 billion in revenue sharing over a 10-year period of time. So this just partially recovers some of that revenue. So that's it in a nutshell. It may sound a bit confusing, but again, as the governor has said, it actually simplifies things, because when you go to gas up at the pump now, any amount of gas tax money that you pay, 100% of it will go toward roads, and that's the simplifying part of the reform.
And Bob, from the county's perspective, can you please explain Proposal 1?
Well, as far as I understand it, and I focus mainly on the road portion of it, presently, roads are funded with 19 cents a gallon tax on your gasoline, 15 cents a gallon tax on your diesel fuel, and a portion of the registration fees. Also, on the price you pay at the pump is a 6% sales tax that does not go for roads. This bill will eliminate the sales tax and create a single wholesale tax on the price of gasoline that will be about 14.9%. That tax has an ability to float with the price of gasoline. It is capped at 5% increase and capped at a 5% decrease, so that it will never increase faster than the price of fuel or decrease faster than the price of fuel. The bill also contains some provisions regarding competitive bidding for all road work. There are many places in the state, obviously, that do not do that. It includes a portion on road warranties. The state of Michigan wants to get contractors to give us warranties on our road work. There is also a provision in this bill that wants to create 25%. I don't know if anybody knows, but the Department of Roads has a maintenance contract with the state of Michigan, and we maintain all state trunk lines. The state has asked that 25% of my maintenance forces will be performance-based. I haven't quite figured out what that means, but that is to improve the performance of our maintenance activities on state trunk lines. And that's about how I understand the bill.
Great, thank you so much. So how would the passing of Proposal 1 affect the wallet of the average taxpayer?
Well, it's a very good question because right now motorists spend a lot of money in auto repairs. Some of the estimates are a few $100s a year easily. But we know, anecdotally speaking, when you blow out a tire or bend a rim, you know, it could be $500+ for those types of repairs, or a broken tie rod or other suspension damage, you know, becomes very costly. So we're spending a lot of money in auto repair right now because of our roads. But in terms of what residents would pay with this new proposal in the increased sales tax, you really have to look at how much you spend per year on retail goods. So let's say the average family, for example, spends $20,000 on retail goods. The 1% increase from 6 to 7 would mean you would spend $200 more per year under this proposal. So you have to weigh that. You know, do you want to spend a couple $100 more with this proposal, or do you want to continue to spend it on auto repairs throughout the years? That's a question only voters throughout the state can answer.
Great. Sal, now on to you. If Proposal 1 passes, what kind of funding would the city of Sterling Heights see?
Well, if the proposal passes, we would see increases would occur and be phased in over 3 years. So 2016, 2017, 2018, by the time we get to 2018, we would see roughly $5 million annually in increase for our major road funding. So that would be a dramatic increase from what we're currently spending, and would allow us to complete and accelerate a number of needed repairs on our major road system.
Great. And Mark, you had mentioned an element of Proposal 1 would affect school funding. Can you explain that for us?
Right, as I mentioned at the onset, right now when you gas up, you pay sales tax on gas, the 6% sales tax. But that 6% sales tax revenue that you pay goes to schools and cities to fund those essential services. And there's been a lot of frustration that, again, when you gas up at the pump, that any taxes you pay should go to roads, not schools and cities. So this proposal removes the sales tax from the gas pump and then increases the sales tax from 6 to 7 to fill that hole for cities and schools. So cities across the state would get about $300 million more a year. Now it's hard to say how that breaks down per pupil because that yet has to be determined. And that's up to the state legislature to determine that. But school superintendents across the state have supported this legislation because more funding, more revenue for classroom resources, including per pupil allocations, is vitally important. We know that the success of our communities is really based on education, and we have to have state-of-the-art educational resources, and we have to be able to compete nationally and internationally, and this helps achieve that goal.
Excellent. And Sal, back to you. If Proposal 1 passes, what roads would be tackled first in Sterling Heights?
We would want to tackle the worst roads first. Roads such as 15 Mile Road, which is desperately in need of repair, would be a high priority. Canal Road, sections of 19 Mile Road, for example, Saul Road. So those are the roads that we know that there's a need there, and we've patched and patched over and over for years trying to extend the life of those roads, and it really come to a point where patching no longer is going to be able to sustain those roads for in the long term, and we really need to get out there very quickly to start making permanent repairs. The patchwork we do buys us time, but eventually we have to get out there and provide those permanent repairs to extend that life, rebuild those roads to give them another 25 to 30-year lifespan.
If Proposal 1 passes, when's the soonest we would see those roads being fixed?
The soonest would be 2016. Funding would commence with the beginning of the state's budget year, which is in October of 2015. Funding would come in. We would prepare for projects for springtime construction. So roughly a year from now, you will see the first project in Sterling Heights underway with the new funding.
There's always the chance that Proposal 1 will not pass, and if it doesn't pass, when would those same roads, the 15 mile, 19 mile, when would they be tackled?
The lifespan would be expanded. We would need to, the priorities would stay the same, but it would take much longer for us to get to those roads. So we would continue to do what we've done. We've gone out and patched the roads and to make them safe for the drivers. But those roads are in rough shape, and the quality of the road deteriorates every winter, as we see, and there's potholes. And all we can do is continue to patch them to buy us time until that time that the permanent funding is available. So we will see the continuation of the trend that's been very frustrating to the public and to administration here, even the DPW workers, that we have to continue to patch roads that we recognize are beyond their useful life. They need to be reconstructed, but funding simply isn't there to do the work.
And on to the county. Bob, if Proposal 1 passes, what major roads would Macomb County tackle first?
I can say two specific ones in Sterling Heights that we would address, and the two that I've chosen. And I created this list before this meeting. I did it for the Board of Road Commissioners, and we intend to repave 14 Mile from DeQuinder all the way to Utica Road, and we intend to work on Metropolitan Parkway from Van Dyke to Utica Road and make those major improvements that are long-term fixes to those roads. The Department of Roads receives 100% of our operational funding through the gasoline and the weight tax. We receive no other money anywhere. And many people I hear complain of high taxes. I spend a lot of money in taxes. Why aren't my roads better? Well, we're 100% funded through the pump, and we have not been increased since 1997. All aspects of our work, everything we do, not just road construction, but placing road salt on roadways, mowing grass, buying vehicles, paying the people that work for us, have increased significantly in 17 years. We need more money. Everybody every day drives on the roads. That's why it's such a critical issue. And they're not getting better. We all can admit that. We rate the roads in Macomb County every 2 years. We travel them, we measure a rating, and we apply a poor, fair, and good rating. The curve on Macomb County roads is going down. It will not go up under the present funding that we have.
And if I could just interject there, I mean, Bob's got a tough job because he has to deal with all the roads county-wide, and it's a tall order because they deteriorate more and more every year. But a couple other roads in Sterling Heights that we get a lot of complaints on from residents that are county roads, and we always politely remind them to call Bob and his department, but they include Shaner. We get a lot of complaints on Shaner from Metro Parkway down to 14, and under this proposal, that section would be accelerated and would see major improvements as well. But there are also other county roads in the city. Mound, I know that's something Bob is continuing to devote resources to, but the reality is at some point in time, Mound's going to have to be reconstructed, and much like Van Dyke, and this type of money would help in that respect. So there's just so many road needs in the county, in the city of Sterling Heights, and all other cities. This proposal really is a massive proposal. I mean, it would chart the course for road improvements for decades to come. If you look at it over a 10-year period of time, we're talking before the taping, in Sterling Heights we're going to get, as Sal mentioned, about $5 million more a year over 10 years. It's $50 million just in Sterling Heights. The county's going to get close to $300 million over that same 10-year period of time. And then when you consider Warren and all the other jurisdictions in Macomb County, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in new road funding. So you could see that this would dramatically improve the condition of our roads over a 10-year period of time. And we've heard some say that, well, this proposal would, the state would then have the highest sales tax in the country, or one of the highest. The reality is it would put us right in the middle of the pack in about the 21st position. So it's all a balancing act. You mentioned earlier, if this doesn't pass, what would we do? We continue to muddle through, we continue to have bad roads, but at some point in time you still have to allocate new revenue for roads, and that's the tough pill to swallow here.
Great, thank you. And we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
Nearly half of children with autism wander away from safe places, such as their home or school. If you ever see a child walking alone, remember the 3 S's. Stop to help, seek assistance from police, stay until they arrive. If a child with autism is missing, immediately search places that pose the most danger, such as nearby water and busy streets. To learn more, visit missingkids.com/aware.
Hello, and welcome back to City Management Report. We're here discussing Proposal 1. Bob, you were just filling us in on roads that Macomb County would tackle if Proposal 1 passed. How would Macomb County move forward if the proposal doesn't pass?
We'll follow the present plan that we use now. We have road improvements scheduled over the next 3 years, but they're scheduled according to the availability of funding. We rely heavily on our federal dollars. These projects are large, and unless we get participation from others, particularly the federal government, we can't build them. And that money only comes slowly, so the projects will slow down, it'll be longer. The total roadway system will continue to get worse if we follow the present path.
Okay. What do businesses think about this proposal? Obviously, they're affected by our road conditions. Just curious what they think.
Well, it's interesting because you would think that, well, first, let me preface this. No one likes taxes. No one wants to increase taxes, including all of us at the table. And I think most reasonable people would say they don't want taxes. But at the same time, we all understand that somehow we've got to have a solid infrastructure, including roads. And businesses recognize that too. So the Small Business Association has come out in support of this. Business associations and leaders across the state support it, and others have taken a neutral position, like the State Chamber has taken a neutral position, and others. The Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce, which is the largest chamber of commerce in this area, they have taken a position of support. We go back to our Van Dyke project. 8 years ago, Van Dyke was really in deplorable condition before the state put on the Band-Aid resurfacing. And we had businesses coming to us saying, how can we have this type of roadway in our city? You can hardly drive down it, and that was true. I mean, we had motorists that would avoid the Van Dyke corridor, thus harming those businesses down the Van Dyke corridor because it was literally dangerous to drive down. So businesses recognize that you do have to have good roads, and it's an important equation to economic development in our state, especially when you look at some of the precious cargo that we have in southeastern Michigan. We have a lot of auto manufacturers, a lot of defense manufacturing, a lot of transportation, logistical issues at stake, and with poor roadways, that cargo is always at risk. So it really is an important issue for businesses across the area, including in Macomb County.
And Mark, has Governor Snyder taken a position on Proposal 1?
Well, the governor, including the lieutenant governor and the governor's office, has taken a position of support. You've heard them on the news media. They've been traveling the state, talking about, in fact, the governor will be in the area today talking about the importance of Proposal 1. So the governor worked hard to develop this proposal and broker the compromise, if you will. Again, there was no viable Plan B that had passed the legislature, unfortunately, and thus the governor's office stepped in, including the lieutenant governor, and helped facilitate the plan that is before us today. It's not the best plan. It can be a bit complicated, although it is going to simplify what we currently have now, and public opinion is mixed on it, but as the governor would say, it is the only plan on the table right now, and it is our chance to correct the structural deficiency we have with roads in this state. There just is not a viable Plan B if this fails. All the debates to date have failed. Well, some have said there's got to be a Plan B. Come on, there will be a Plan B. There may ultimately be a Plan B, but if this fails, there'll less likely be any sort of tax increase. So the Plan B would not be net new revenue. It would be taking money from some other place. And all the prior plans took money from cities and schools. So that would likely be any future Plan B as well. And that's what we're deeply concerned about. We've gone through a lot of cuts in our city. We've cut 200 full-time positions. We've had to reduce positions in our police and fire department. It's really difficult for us to cut any further without harming public safety in our city. So that's our concern about the Plan Bs that may be floating out there should this fail.
And as you mentioned, Proposal 1 is a little complicated for voters to understand. Bob, do you know where they can go to learn more?
Well, it's important that every time we vote, we educate ourselves on the issues. And I only read, that's because I read the Free Press, but the Free Press has published 2 very thorough explanations of the bill. They go into detail on each separate bill that's tied into there. And I urge all of you to read these articles and educate yourselves. You're going to find lots of stuff you don't like in these bills, but you're going to find lots of stuff that you like and many things that we desperately need to get our road system back up.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else you guys would like to share with our viewers about Proposal 1?
I would just like to add too, speaking of Bob's point, you know, educating yourselves is so important. There's a lot of really good resources in addition to the Free Press article that Bob mentioned. You can get all that online, by the way. You can also go to SEMCOG's website. That's the Southeastern Michigan Council of Governments, so semcog.org. And they have analyzed this proposal in a very comprehensive way, and you can get that information 24/7. And you know, you can also call our Chamber of Commerce and get their feedback. You can talk to elected officials, get their feedback. You can go to the state's website and go to the governor's office and review the information they have posted online as well. So there's so many places to get good information, but the key is becoming really educated before you take a firm position on this one way or the other.
And it's important, you know, this money, it's Michigan Transportation Funds. It's given to the cities and the road departments. We can use that on all the roads within our system, including our local road system, which are desperately in need of repair and are desperate. They'll have a positive impact on everybody's property values. when we repair the roads, everybody, it's a great thing.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you all for being here today. That'll wrap up today's edition of City Management Report. And remember, the election is on May 5th.